you're not asking them to fill the hole that's within you. Does that make sense? So when we talk about the feminine and masculine, this is really what it is. It's about balancing your own energy until you feel kind of like, okay, I'm happy. I can swing, to the left and to the right very easily. And I can always come back to that sense of, balance right in the middle. Then that's when your life feel like, everything feels like it's just in the right place.
Learn the ways of the goddess and accomplish much more with so much less effort. Welcome to Your Goddess Awakened with Hallie Evelyn, a show dedicated to helping you embrace your divine feminine and nurture your inner goddess for a radiant life. We invite you to join us every week to receive goddess wisdom that will help you through your current obstacles and lifelong traumas. Awaken the goddess within you and transform your business and your life, only here on Your Goddess Awakened.
So welcome everyone to another First Friday. We are so excited to have you here. Just letting more folks in. And I want to introduce the lovely Solera, my partner in crime. Solera, say howdy.
Hi! Hello, ladies. It's so nice to be here with you all. Well, we're very excited to do this again, so yay.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. And we're talking about the sacred divine feminine today and how that's going to affect your life. I'm actually really excited to talk about this because I've done a session with Solera since the last time we had this conversation, and I feel like deeply shifted around my own work. So that's really awesome. And Solera, before we get started, as we're continuing to let folks in, talk about your crown.
My crown. Okay. So I had commissioned this crown. It actually was made by one of my own students. She is a very gifted jeweler, and she can channel different designs that is literally custom made for your blueprint and for your soul purpose. So I'll show you a bit what the crown looks like. It has like a diamond in the front. And the diamond symbolizes, of course, prosperity and wealth, and which is what I teach, in my work through the channeling. And then there's two diamonds shape at the front, and it means connecting basically heaven and earth, which is also what I do because I channel the divine messages from the guides and bring it down to earth. So it was like, she really put a lot of thought, like this whole thing was handmade and hand selected. So I was very happy. It came from Australia, so flew all the way to Thailand for Australia. Yeah, she's super gifted with jewelry making, and she can really just make a design that's completely your own. She never does something that's like a copycat of somebody else. So highly recommend her. Her name is Tracy Chambers.
Well, I have to say, it looks to me like there's a lot of sacred geometry, which is the geometry that's found in nature, and also the geometry that we can tap into to awaken ourselves and to uplift ourselves. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, that's just a beacon for the divine. It just looks so amazing, so beautiful. It's really lovely.
Thank you. Yeah, and I actually can channel like with the elementals now, so I could talk to all the rocks. So the diamond was like, you have to wear me whenever you channel.
That's so funny. So I've been working with Solera for a while, and I always love all the really cool stuff she talks about, like channeling elementals, which are what we would call non-sentient beings, but of course everything has an awareness. And the other day she had a post about her orchids talking to her, and her orchids were fussing at her, and I could see them I wanted to name them after the Golden Girls, because they were just all feisty and
They were.
And fussing at you. I just thought that was really fun. So
yeah, it's like a surprise to me because I didn't know plants could talk, and I certainly didn't know rocks could talk either.
I've
And
been
no,
talking to my plants for years, and they've done studies. They say that, like, playing Mozart for your plants makes them grow faster, and
yeah,
talking to your tomatoes and telling them how sweet they are will make them sweeter. And
sweeter.
I just think that's delightful and so true. I had a beloved dog years ago, and I was friends with this man. This is back when I was in real estate. He was a born again Christian, but he was one of those born again Christians that has like this much bandwidth and nothing else is acceptable to him. And he said to me, oh, your dog's getting older, and unfortunately he won't go to heaven because he doesn't have a soul. And in that moment, I was like, oh yeah, no, that's just wrong. And it was not, it was, way before I had started coaching, but it was after my own spiritual awakening, but I was still very much in exploration mode. And I really wanted to hear what, what
Yeah.
everyone had to say, and all of the beliefs. And then I was like, yes, this isn't really okay with me. No. Laura has posted, there's a passage in the Bible that says, even the stones will cry out. And isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
I feel like
they do.
there's so much hidden stuff in the Bible, and like when you look for it, so thank you, Laura, for adding that.
Yeah, thank
That's
you.
beautiful. Yeah. So Solera, I want to talk today about this idea of balancing the sacred divine masculine and feminine. You were so wonderful with me when we did the session the other day, and you really talked to me about that need for balance and about the idea that that time is very masculine. The linear time that we consider like our main construct is very masculine, and that really being in the feminine is being outside of time and also allowing time to collapse. Would you talk more about that? Because I just found that fascinating.
Yeah, time was one of those things I had to learn at the very beginning of my channeling. The way they show me is time is not horizontal the way we think about it. Time is more like a straight line. And with some of my more advanced students, they actually would teach them how to almost like jump through time, access either your past self or access your future self, right? For example, I do the Council of Billionaires, and in one of the sessions, they said to the student, one of the students is like, okay, we want you to access the part of you that's already a billionaire. And she is there. Like the way you think about it, it's like, oh, that's like not possible. Like I'm barely making that much, right? But no, that part of you is already there. So you need to access it and think of it as a present moment. Like the way they described it is like, oh, she's your next door neighbor. Like you can just walk over there and talk to your neighbor, and so you can actually access the future just as much as you can access the past. Let's say you've had some traumas when you were younger, you can access your inner self, your inner child from a long time ago and communicate with her and just like give her therapy basically. So time is not the way we think, like, oh, it has to be like today, tomorrow, the next day. It's like vertical, like the way they had showed me when I was channeling. It's like a straight line. So it's on the same x-axis, right? It's not, if that makes sense. Like a graph, there's an x-axis and y-axis. It's on the same x-axis. It's just like a straight line. So you can access yourself pretty much at any timeline.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of the work that I do with clients is about that past regression therapy, if you will, but regression to being the child, regression to even a past life for the purposes of healing it, and then also moving into the future self. I have a meditation that I call Meeting Your Goddess, where you basically tap into that future self energy. And I've seen other healers and coaches work along similar lines. I think the most fascinating thing is the idea of accepting it as real. Because for so many of us, we're really indoctrinated into that idea of the linear time. And, when you take that x-axis and you turn it on its end, I think that makes it the y-axis, right?
No, like, how in math, like if it's a straight line, then that means all the dots have the same x coordinate.
Got
right?
it.
Like, how,
Yes,
like
because
a
the
long time
x's
ago.
would be, Yeah, the
Yes.
X's would be horizontal. And if they have yes, that's great. So they're appearing on the Y axis
Yes.
because there's no width to them. And
Yes.
that's really fascinating too, because I've been told by, I'm going to call him like a sage, but a mage would be more accurate. He's just like
Mhm.
phenomenally talented channel. He talked to me about the fact that we have multiple lifetimes that we're experiencing at the same
Same
time,
time. Yeah.
which also like, made the top of my head come off. That was really fun. So he was like, yeah, right now, I'll never forget this. He was like, yes, right now I'm a baker in 17th century France. But the cool thing about him was that he could tap into that. He could feel those other lifetimes happening simultaneously. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that was really fascinating. So how do we utilize that to experience our own sacred divine feminine more? Because of course the whole concept of time travel is beginning to feel very feminine to me.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think when we operate, on kind of that linear timeline, then we're always thinking about what do I do at this hour? What do I do at this hour? What I do at this hour? Versus thinking time more like almost like a circle. You don't have to actually. When we operate, I think in that masculine model, we expect things to kind of unfold in a certain way. And the way the guides have explained it to me, it's like actually that's a slow way of accomplishing things. But if you tap into that feminine model of thinking of time as a circle, then all the things you want can be accomplished right now. You
And
don't have to
all
do this and then wait and then do the second thing. Like they can just be done and accomplished right now.
and what you said about the circle, it feels like if like from point A to point B, right? So if I start here and I want to get to here, that's
Mhm.
something that's a journey I have to take. But it feels like if it's a circle, it's like accessible to me at all times. And
Yes.
I love that concept. That's amazing.
Yes, it's because you can jump to any point in the circle. You don't have to follow that straight line. Because like sometimes we think, oh, I have to get this done, and then I'm going to get this done. Like it has to be unfolded like in a certain order, but there is no order. That's
So
it.
when I was a kid, I read this amazing book by Madeleine L'Engle called A Wrinkle in Time. And while it's been made into a film a couple times, not well, even the latest Oprah Winfrey version wasn't great. The concepts of it are very science based. And
Hmm.
in it, they talk about a tesseract. And a tesseract is basically a collapse of time. And I'll never forget this because it was the first time I
Hmm.
ever saw an illustration in a book. They showed a line and they showed an ant walking on the line. And then
Hmm.
they showed the line collapsing
Yes.
into a circle so the ant could jump over. Well,
Yes.
the other day on our session, you basically used a napkin to show me that exact
Yes.
same thing. And it was about collapsing time, but it was also about using these feminine principles of being
Yeah.
outside of time. And it brought back that whole memory as a child. Now, I didn't study any of this stuff until I was well into being an adult, but I remember being like transported in that moment to the idea that real time travel could be real. And that was
Yeah.
I was like 10 or 11, but I remember just just wanting the desire to be able to create a tesseract. And so to
Hmm.
now understand that I can, and every single day, that's amazing.
Yeah, actually, that is actually how, well, I wouldn't say people, but other, races, let's say in outside of Earth, they do travel, quantumly, quantumly, that's an adverb.
Yeah.
They do travel like that because time, it's more like a location. They can just spot the location in their consciousness and move there. So it appears like okay, now they're all of a sudden like let's say in the sky showing up, but from their perspective because they can fold that napkin. That's exactly what it is.
Yes, I love that. That's beautiful. All right, learning, my next embodiment in this lifetime is learning to fold the napkin. I'm super excited
Yes.
about that. That's awesome. So Nancy asks, as we become more evolved in this lifetime, does it help our other lives?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Thought
You
so
know
too.
what? The guides have actually said that they almost never do past life work with the students, and sometimes I'm just like annoyed. It's like, why don't you do that? They always say no. You just need to focus the lifetime you have right now, because this is when you can change and affect all these other lifetimes. It's
Mm.
almost like, because time is not linear, we think, oh, there's no way we can affect the past. But actually, as you shift yourself in your own consciousness, you can also shift, I guess, the consciousness of wherever you are elsewhere, And so it doesn't matter what the time is. It doesn't matter if it's like in that past life. It's like you can shift that. And yeah, so that's why they almost never work on like a past life with the student. They're like, you just need to focus on this life. This is the one that you've been given, so work on this one.
It's interesting because I've worked with a lot of people who channel, and well before I met you, and
Yeah,
I find your guides to be like the most straightforward and like,
yeah,
I
they're very
mean, you
direct.
talk about everything being easy, and you talk about everything being, super graceful with the experience. And they're like, oh, yeah, we'll not just channel $1 million. Like, why not channel $1 billion? And that sort of like la di da attitude would kind of like shows up in, no, we're not going to work on any of these past lifetimes. This is just the present moment is the only thing you need. And I just think that's really awesome. I also suspect that it has to do with your personality, because I've only ever seen the guides come through and like marry with somebody else's personality, or the
Mhm.
channel's personality. So I feel like inside, the woman of the Chanel bags and the constant cake meals is the woman who, the guys are like, oh yeah, we're just going to make this super straightforward and easy because Solera has other things to do. So that's just, that's my theory.
Yeah, I think it's because I'm such a practical person. I had a lot of resistance being a channel, because I was like, I don't want to say anything that's fluffy. Like, no one needs to hear about like, oh, here's time for awakening and ascension and all this stuff. I'm like, how does that have to do with real life? That was always like, I will always ask them like this, like, don't tell me things that's not like practical. Don't tell me things that has nothing to do with like real life. Like, tell me how to like, create these things I want, and then like just make it practical. And I think maybe that's probably why it comes out that way. They are really practical. If you want to have certain things in your life, you can ask them and they'll tell you, here's the 5-step plan.
Yep, I absolutely love that about them. That's brilliant. Sandy knows, Sandy, one of our listeners today, knows that, or viewers, I guess, knows that I talk about the idea of the big, beautiful brain. And your
Oh,
big, beautiful brain is the piece of you that you want to really get out of the way to do the work so that you can, tap into your higher self, for example. So I'm always saying, like, hi, big, beautiful brain. Let's just like go have a nap right now because we're going to work with this other part of you. So her question is, how do we know it's not our big, beautiful brains that create what we think is another place in time? You guys, your questions are amazing. All right, go ahead, Solera.
oh yeah, that's really interesting. I think your consciousness is right here, right now, right? It's actually okay to work with the ego. Like, you don't have to reject the big beautiful brain. And that's actually how the guys teach us as well. They always say, you don't have to reject this part of you. In fact, bring it along. Like, bring it along. Like,
Mhm.
engage the ego and actually ask for your ego's assistance. You can talk to yourself, like, is it okay if we do this together? It may be a little bit scary, but it's okay. Like, let us move forward in this way. So it's really about actually gathering all the fragmented aspects of who you are, and not think that that's somehow like the bad part of you, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yes. In my last book, in Nutri-Glamorous, I said somebody wrote this book called Kill Your Ego. And I really wanted to kill the
Yeah.
author because haha, but I was feeling really strongly that you have to work with the ego,
Yeah.
and the idea of bringing up those, bringing those fragmented pieces of you and and allowing that to become the whole is so important. And that was really what we talked about. You gave me the image of the figure skater, or we were talking about the figure skating couple, and we were talking about the idea of tango for a moment. And in each case, there's a measured quality where everyone is just like a quarter step away, but they're moving completely in sync the entire time. And that figure, that image of those like highly coordinated and flowing dancers or ice skaters is what you were talking about as having the masculine and feminine inside of you. And that's that's to me the cohesion of the whole working together, is having that beautiful flow of the sacred divine masculine and feminine all at the same time, as if you were an Olympic ice skating pair. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, because sometimes we think, we were taught, I think, especially when I was younger going to school, it's like you're taught that being masculine is better somehow. It's almost like that's how the school educates people. And then you judge like the feminine being like a bit too weak or too wishy-washy or too indirect or whatever it is. But actually, very often the feminine is like a big container, right? Even let's say we talk about money. In order to receive, you have to have a big container to receive money. So if you have a wounded feminine and you don't know, like you don't even connect with your feminine, you don't have the ability to receive, and you're just going to use your masculine, you become really lopsided. It's like you only use like one arm, but not the other arm. But when you combine those, it's like feminine receives the inspiration, receives the ideas, and then masculine can actually execute on it, right? Masculine can help you take action on the inspirations. But I find that when you're off balance on either end, like if you're too feminine, then it's like you're just connecting with the divine, but you don't do anything. You don't take action on the ideas or on the inspiration that the universe gives you. But you live in three-dimensional world, so our action is what propels us right forward and helps us create things. So it's important that you do something, but the action is based on your inspiration, not based on like your thinking, like I have to do this and I'm going to force myself to do this. And then you end up not, being able to create the life that you want because you're just pushing it. And that's a very hard way to go about it.
Yeah, I worked with a new client yesterday, and within two sentences, I said, "You don't really have a lot of joy in your work, do you?"
Yeah.
And it was just so clear because of the language that she was using. And what I find so fascinating is we feel like we're managed by our to-do lists or we're run by our businesses. And yet I'm starting to almost collect stories from women who are doing less, receiving more, allowing more, and getting better results faster. And that's, I was sharing with somebody about our session and that conversation that we had about that. And she said, "Oh yeah, I took off like a week, and then all the money started coming in." And then somebody else was saying like, "Oh, I took off a month and it was the highest gross of that, that I'd ever had while I wasn't working, and I couldn't be working for a month." But that's the thing, like we have a tendency to say, "Oh, I can't work." And I think this is why women often get sick, because it's the only time that we can give ourselves permission to take that time off. My mother used to be like the doer, goer all the time. And, she lives in London. She lives on the 5th floor of a Victorian walk-up. So you're talking about a lady who is now 80 years old and just like does the 5 flights of stairs like 7 times a day. But she would get sick like clockwork. Every January it was bronchitis, and there was just like nothing to do about it. And I always thought it's because, we started having a little routine that we would do every day. "Mother, how many things are you doing this, today? you're only allowed to do 2 things. It should be like, I'm doing 5. And if there were enough of those 5-day things, then boom, bronchitis. But it was because it was her body was asking for permission to be quiet and to rest. Yeah. So I feel like we as women have a tendency to believe that that's the only time we have the right to rest, when the truth is you plug your cell phone in every single night to recharge the batteries. Why don't we do this for ourselves? So, why don't we do this for ourselves?
Yes. I actually, as soon as I feel like I'm too tired, I would just right away go take a nap. Like I just right away, I'm like, I need to go take a nap right now. So, and I would go, like 30 minutes later, 40 minutes later, I feel better. And then I'm like, okay, now it's like almost like waking up a second time. I was like, look, I've got the whole day ahead of me. And then I can do other fun things. But just in terms of work, honestly, I just focus on one thing a day. That's just my goal.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I actually only just do one thing, like one main thing that I know is going to move the needles, for my business. And the rest is just like, it would be nice to get those done, but I'm not obligated. That's kind of how I feel.
Wow, that's really interesting. So I teach a method called the empowered to-do list, where you take your regular to-do list and you just put the 3 things that you can get accomplished that day. And then to create a cycle of success, you reward yourself at the end of every one of those things. And it's like super simple, and it gives people relief because, of course, the to-do list is never ending. But I love your idea of just doing one thing. That sounds beautiful. That's awesome.
I think the one thing just allows me to really focus on it and allows me to do it well, if that makes sense, because manifestation is about concentration of energy, right? And of course, like not holding on to the idea tightly. So I find that if I'm just writing, let's say I want to write a marketing post and I just focus on that, and once that's done for the day, I'm like, good, I've already finished my whole marketing plan. And to be honest, that's actually how I run my business. I just write 1 post a day, and then that's my marketing. And that's the extent of my work, 10 minutes, It takes longer for me to like define a picture to go with the post than it is to write a post. But my work is very simple. And if there are bigger things I need to do, then I'm like, okay, the bigger thing is just that my one thing. And then everything, like the rest of the day, I'm free. Like I'll spend the rest of the day reading vampire books and eating chocolate cake.
And going to Chanel to see what your next bag is. Yes. Nikki says, I always go to the beach to recharge. Yeah, I've done a future meditation. I call it the perfect day. And I've done this with clients for years. And I also do it on all of my discovery calls, because of course we want people to feel what it's going to be like after you've done the things that you desire. And I'm going to say maybe 95% of every woman I've ever done this with, when I say to her, visualize your perfect day, she starts talking about the beach. She starts talking about being near water. She starts talking about her experience by the beach. We'll have an occasional woodsy thing or a mountain cabin, but like seriously, I started noticing the pattern, and I was like, what is it about beaches? But we all want to be there. Yeah.
Well, water is feminine, right? The energy of water is feminine. So I think as women, we naturally gravitate towards basically just the feminine power that nature provides. Just to be like that in the relaxing mode. I live in the city here in Bangkok, so it's not that convenient to go to the beach. But I have a rooftop garden here in the condo. So, at 5 o'clock, I'm done. I go play, I'll bring my yoga mat and I'll stretch there, and I'll bring my vampire book, with me, and I'll go read. And I'll spend like 2 hours there, just for fun. So
yeah. Nancy says you can relax at the beach. And I do feel like it really dials us down. So Solera, you have a permanent invitation to come to Miami and hang out with me, because I live so close to the beach. It's really awesome. I can go anytime that I want. So I know we have enough time left to invite you to bring the guides in and to see what they have to say today about our topics, about time travel and balancing.
Okay, great. Yes, we're here. So thank you so much for giving us an opportunity. So we're going to help you understand how to balance the feminine with the masculine energy, because there's a lot of misconception. It's not that you want 50-50, you want 100%, 100%. This is how we want you to think about the masculine energy and the feminine energy. It's not like half and half. You're trying to like squish half of you and then squish the other half of you and then you make a whole. No, we want you to actually develop your masculine energy 100% and develop your feminine energy 100%. What does that mean? Because each energy has its advantages, you can say. Right? The masculine, once you're really skilled in masculine, you'll be able to execute really well, do things really well, accomplish really well, because the masculine tends to be, running in linear order. So it can do A, B, C, D, E, F, G really quickly once you've mastered this level, right? This energy. And the feminine energy is the same, but slightly different in the sense that it's not about accomplishing, but it's about being very fluid and connected with your intuition and tapping into your intuition at all times. It's like you're walking around, you receive a download. You are munching on chips, you receive a download. You're in the shower, you're receiving a download. It's like being able to access that and receive that. Does that make sense? And once you develop your feminine 100%, not 50%, 100%, then it's like you're always connected with the divine because you're always receiving it. So this is how we want you to think about it, not like 50-50. It's almost like a marriage, right? People talk about 50-50, but we would say it's better to approach a marriage thinking about 100% committed and 100% committed on the other end as well. So it's not 50-50, but you see, you have to start that within yourself. I'm 100%, committed to my masculine, and I'm 100% committed to my feminine. And then developing them. And that's how you're going to be able to create a relationship. Now, at the beginning, when you're not used to it, let's say you focus on your masculine energy for a period of time and you just do work. And then you feel out of balance. And the pendulum might swing to the other side, just to the feminine. Work. No, not work, but you just tap into the feminine because you just did work over here. You tap into the feminine on this other side. But the idea is to eventually have the pendulum swing just slightly in the middle. Okay, it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to pause in the middle. It can just move slightly to the right, slightly to the left, where you're just dancing with the masculine energy, dancing with the feminine energy. So when you're relaxed, you're reading a book, you're just outside walking, you can tap into your feminine energy because at that, you don't have to do anything, right? You're just relaxing and allowing the feminine to receive whatever information she's ready to receive, and connecting with nature, connecting with the divine. And then when you have to do work, you sit down, you just focus. You're able to concentrate your masculine energy and make that into like a laser beam. And this is how you manifest, right? And then the feminine says, yes, I am open to all the riches and happiness in the world. And it receives, right? But if you just push it with the masculine, and your container is not big enough, your receiving muscle is not strong enough, then you're not going to be able to receive a lot. So sometimes you will see couples, right? Let's say the guy's really good at working and he's out there, he's like the breadwinner. And then let's say the woman is like the homemaker and she's, taking care of children. And you might find that, because they each are strong in one area, they come together, they might be a successful couple. And not necessarily successful emotionally, but they could be very successful, let's say, in terms of wealth, okay? But you don't want to rely on someone to fill that gap. Does that make sense? Let's say you're really feminine. You don't want to just be looking for someone to fill the hole that's in you. We want you to have the mentality of okay, let's say my masculine is missing or my feminine is missing. You're going to go develop that. Like fill the hole within yourself. Okay? Develop both sides to 100%. And then you're going to feel like you're complete. And then when you go into a relationship, you're going to feel complete because you already feel complete on the inside. Does that make sense? So it's not just money that we're talking about, but it's also interpersonal relationship with other people. Sometimes you're seeking for people to complete you. That could be a romantic relationship. That could be a relationship with, let's say, with a boss. That could be a relationship with a friend. You're always seeking other people to fill your holes. But if you develop both aspects of you, the masculine and the feminine, then you are whole. Then all the relationships that come into your life, it's kind of like they're just bonuses. It's just really nice that you have an extra person to hang out with and play with and go out with. But you're not asking them to fill the hole that's within you. Does that make sense? So when we talk about the feminine and masculine, this is really what it is. It's about balancing your own energy until you feel kind of like, okay, I'm happy. I can swing, to the left and to the right very easily. And I can always come back to that sense of, balance right in the middle. Then that's when your life feel like, everything feels like it's just in the right place. Does that make sense? And is there any question for us in regarding to the information that we've just shared?
Yeah, I want to invite everybody to just post any questions that you may have in the chat. I don't know that we'll get to all of them, but we're happy to have you ask questions of the guides. I guess for me, you talked about the ways, you said like, getting downloads in the shower and everything. And I was talking about this on my show on one of the recent episodes on Your Goddess Awakened. The idea that spirit is actually really subtle, and what we are getting as a download when we're connected to that intuition is super, super subtle, to the point where we might overlook it or miss it. So how subtle does spirit get exactly? And how subtle does our intuition get? And how do we know that it isn't just like a random thought as opposed to inspiration?
Yeah, we can clarify for you. So at the beginning, when you're not used to listening to your intuition, then you can ask the universe for more obvious signs. So before Solera developed her channeling ability, she would say, please show me what I need to know in the movie. Well, that's pretty clear, because then you watch the movie and you get the lesson. Okay. So sometimes she would have like a clear idea of a movie that she has no interest in watching, but she's like, ooh, I think I need to watch this movie. And then she watches the movie. She said, oh, okay, I needed to watch it for this and this and this reason, because she was asking for signs. She was asking for help. So, or she might see like a billboard and has like a new movie out. She was like, oh, I need to go watch that one. So we are explaining this way too, because you can ask the universe to deliver signs to you in a way that you can understand. Does that make sense? Because initially, maybe you're not good at listening to intuition. So just tell the universe, please show it to me in a way that I'm going to be able to process. Maybe you can recommend a book to me. Maybe you can tell a friend to call me. It's like Solera learned to channel because she had this feeling that she should call this friend, because we were nudging her to call this friend. Well, we asked her to call this friend because this friend of hers, long lost friend of hers, ended up learning how to read the Akashic records. And that was one of the first things that this friend said. This friend's like, hey, haven't talked to you in ages. Actually, I'm studying, spirituality. I'm learning how to read the Akashic records. It's really easy. You can do it too. And then Solera thought, oh, okay. So she usually does not like to listen to us. So we would generally nudge her to go talk to various friends of hers, because we know she would generally listen to their friends, but not always listening to us. Okay. So we say, okay, go talk to this friend and go talk to this friend, because we know we would pass the information to the friend and the friend would tell her basically the same thing as we would tell her. So that's one way of getting the signs, getting the information that you're looking for. So it doesn't have to be, it's going to be like some subtle thoughts. Of course, now Solera's used to it. She's used to receiving intuitive thoughts, usually in the shower, and she just expects it. She's standing there in the shower. She's expecting it and having fun with it. And then usually an idea will come to her. Oh, this is exactly what I need to do, right? So you can practice having dialogue with your intuition. So over time, as you practice with it, which is the equivalent of her standing in the shower, you just get used to it. It's almost like you can have inspiration on demand. Does that make sense? Because inspiration is always trying to get through to you. You're just not listening to it. So if you shift your perspective and say, you know what, I'm ready for inspiration on demand, which means anytime I need an inspiration, I'm going to have one. Because you're open to receiving it. That's where the feminine energy comes in, right? You're open to receiving it. So it's like, it doesn't have to be in the shower if you're not a shower person, but if you go to the beach, you can ask, okay, I'm going to go, take a walk along the beach and I'm ready for inspiration anytime. So it's almost like treat the universe as your friend, ask the universe for stuff, just like you would ask like your BFF, right? You would ask your friend, hey, can you do me a favor? I want this, I want this. Usually your friend would nicely comply and it would be like, yeah, not a problem. But the universe is your friend. It's just that you haven't really developed that kind of relationship with it. Therefore, maybe inspiration is not coming quickly, if that makes sense.
You're the first guide I've ever heard to say inspiration is your BFF, but see, it's like all the Solera energy. I love it. It's beautiful. Laura asked this question, and I feel like it's actually maybe already been answered, but I want to kind of spotlight this for a minute. She says, I'm just beginning my journey with developing and embracing my feminine energy. Are there any specific actions or exercises I can do to develop my feminine? And isn't that interesting, because she's asking this question from a very masculine standpoint, specific actions, exercises. And I got to tell you, Laura, this is where I went the first time I started with this. I was like, okay, well, just tell me what to do and I'll accomplish it and I will do it. And it's going to be an exercise, I'm sure. And it'll be like some brilliant thing. And once I do it, then it'll be done. And then I'll have access to all the feminine stuff. And I've already learned it doesn't work like that. However, it's very interesting because we do, when we are in that place of coming from the masculine all the time, and that's what we're invited to do by by our workplace, by our by business in general, by the way that society is run. It is all super masculine, and we're moving in a different direction. And that's why there are so many women right now who are getting the call of that desire for more balance, because we are moving into more of a feminine planet and more of a receiving and allowing planet, and less of an aggressive doing planet. So anyway, guides, we would love just any other insight that you have there.
Yes. So we would give you an exercise just to make you feel better. Actually, this is an exercise we commonly give to a lot of Solera students. When you first start out, you have no idea how to embrace, let's say, the feminine. We would say, block out a time on your calendar. Literally, right? You normally block out time because you have client calls or you want to do stuff or you have dental appointments or whatever it is. You block it on your calendar. Yes, you schedule that. Well, we say, you see, feminine is about space. It's about sort of like it's almost like the negative space. When we see negative space, we don't mean negative isn't bad. It's like, if you think about photography, there's negative space. The feminine is about empty, open space. So you have to make that, create that, right? So your masculine can come and help you. Okay, we're going to block it off on the calendar. We're going to block it off, okay? So you can block it off on your calendar. So let's say 1 hour a day you block off some time, okay? Where you just, this 1 hour, I'm not obligated to do anything. I can read a book. I can listen to music. I can go outside for a walk. That's your time for your feminine. Or but you block it off, right? The masculine comes to help you to schedule that onto your calendar. So now you always have that 1 hour a day where you're not obligated to do anything other than just be happy, try some new things, go outside, walk around, whatever it is that you feel like you want to do. Does that make sense? So this could be an exercise to sort of work with the masculine to help you to create that empty space in your life. And over time, once you've done this enough, you would naturally just make space for yourself. Like, you wouldn't need to schedule it on the calendar. But initially, let's say you don't have the habit of just, having that feminine energy in your life, then you can block it off. Like, this is my feminine time, and I'm not obligated for anything other than what pleases me. Does that make sense?
Beautiful. And Laura, I don't know about you, I feel better knowing that I can can use my masculine to help my feminine. So I really appreciated the language of that question. Thank you again so much. So we're almost out of time for our show today, for our first Friday, with the beautiful Solera and the guides. Is there anything else that the guides would like to offer before we thank them for their time today?
Sure. Yes, we say the way to move forward in your life, instead of looking at all the to-do lists, is to ask yourself constantly, how do I want to feel when I finish that to-do list? Because you think that when you accomplish a to-do list, you're going to feel better. So it's better that before you do the to-do list, right, to do the items, you ask yourself, how do I want to feel at the end? Because you see, the problem with most people with to-do lists is you have more of it, right? That's just endless. You have more of it. So you never get to a point where you can just feel good, you feel relaxed, because there are a million things to do. So instead of approaching the to-do list like this, before you even start like on item number 1, you're just going to center yourself. You ask yourself, how do I want to feel at the end? At the end, I just want to feel like, everything's wrapped up. I feel really happy. I feel balanced. I don't feel like there's anything that's going to be like dragging me down, or I'm going to be worried about anything. And I'm going to allow the to-do list to complete for the day. Because sometimes you have more. You finish that list and then you like add 2 more onto it at the end, right? So let's say your to-do list is like five items, and you can feel that, okay, I think I can finish the 5. That's fine. But you're going to say to yourself before you even start on the number 1, I'm going to complete at the 5 and no more. Okay, it's almost like you have to be a bit disciplined about it. Don't add 2 more things. Even if there's a demand from your client, there's demand from your spouse, there's demand from your children, you say, no, this is it. I have the 5 things. I'm not going to do any more, because my goal is to feel peaceful and relaxed and at ease once I'm done with it. That next 2 items can go to tomorrow's to-do list, and it's not going to be a big deal. So then you can actually always feel like there's a sense of completion at the end of the day. Like, I did such a good job, right? This is what you want to feel like. That's why you have a to-do list, to keep track. So you want to feel, okay, by the end of it, I just want to feel like I've done a great job and I'm really happy and I'm proud of myself. That should be the feeling that you tap into before you even start. Okay? Because once you tap into that feeling and then you start, you'll find that you'll be able to cross the list out really quickly and very easily. Because you know you're going to be done at the number 5, and then there's going to be no more, and you're done for the day, and then you're free to do whatever you want. Right? This is how we would approach, okay, your life in a way that allows you to have a sense of ease and allow the feminine to come and play, allow the feminine to express, right? But you cannot just stuff your calendar with 10, 20 things, because then there's no space, right? And remember, schedule the 1 hour, 2 hours, however much time you have, even if it's just 10 minutes. This is my time. This is just my time to relax. And then over time, you will get into habit of actually connecting to that feminine while allowing the masculine aspect of you to assist you. And with that, we will complete our reading for today.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. They're just such a delight to get to hang out with. And I think this has just been really terrific. And Solera, I also want to acknowledge you. This happens to me a lot in my work as well, as I get to experience the person and the learning that the person needs. I get that too. And then, I have that, and I can tell how much of the guides downloads you have embodied. And it's just really beautiful to, even before they came in, you have so much wisdom and so much experience from being in harmony with their teachings. And I feel like that's something that we can all really, honor and strive for in our own experience, letting that inspiration, letting that intuition, letting that creative feminine energy guide us to have those downloads and then to be able to embody that information. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. much. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think it just takes some practice to implement, right? And just practice it every day. I don't think there's ever going to be like a state of perfection, until you basically you die and then you'll be perfect once again. But I feel like every day is just a practice. And I used to be a pianist, so every day was just a practice. And I see it the same. I just treat it like I'm just practicing, and I don't have to be perfect, and I'm not obligated to like have everything like lined up in a row. Right? It's just I'm just practicing, so that takes the pressure off, I feel.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again so much. I've so enjoyed this conversation, and I can't wait for our next First Friday. So we are doing this as a series all year, the first Friday of every month. So if you haven't signed up yet, you can go to, I'm going to give this URL out, I hope. But if you haven't signed up yet, I just wanted to say that there is a monthly series that you can sign up for. We will put it in the show notes so you have it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Solera. Blessings, everybody. Glad to have you. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
You have just listened to another enlightening and transforming episode of Your Goddess Awakened with Hallie Evelyn. We hope you enjoyed your time with us, and join us again next time so you can continue your journey towards a full transformation. For additional resources and to learn more about working with Hallie Evelyn, visit HallieEvelyn.com. Receive more, do less, and love your life. Only here on Your Goddess Awakened.